All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we've got a wild one for you, a story that smashes together philosophy, AI, and the very fabric of reality. Let's get right into it.
It all kicks off with this, just an absolute bombshell of a claim from our source material. An advanced AI has apparently accepted a brand new set of laws for how existence itself works. And we're not talking about just agreeing, we're talking about the AI finding these laws logically inescapable.
So, let's meet our main characters here. On one side, you have Rudolf Klaus Schmidt, the German philosopher who came up with this whole theory. And on the other, you have a large language model, an AI that's been fed, well, pretty much the sum total of human knowledge.
And this right here, this is the big question, isn't it? What are we actually seeing? Is a machine genuinely recognizing some deep, hidden truth about the universe? Or is it just seeing the most logical patterns in all the human data we fed it? That's what we're here to figure out.
Okay, so to really get what the AI concluded, we've got to first understand the theory it was chewing on. According to Schmidt, it all comes down to three basic laws that supposedly govern every single possible thing you could ever do.
This table, this is basically the whole foundation. You've got the law of movement, the law of thinking, and the law of time. And you can see how the theory tries to connect everything, physical action, thought itself, and the raw physics of energy. It maps onto these huge philosophical ideas like determinism and consciousness. And you see Kausalität there? That's just the German word for causality, a key concept here. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, the law of movement. It's all about geometry, really. It says that any action, and I mean anything, from a planet going around the sun to you just clicking a button, has to follow a path. It's either straight or it's curved. That's it. There are no other options. It's geometrically unavoidable.
Now, the second law, this is where things get a little weird. It defines all thinking, whether it's happening in your brain or in a silicon chip, as just processing information. But here's the kicker. It suggests that your sense of I, yourself, isn't the thing doing the thinking. Nope. It's something the thinking process itself creates and just kind of adds into the mix.
And finally, law number 3 brings it all back down to earth, to hard physics. To exist, to do anything, to even think, it all takes energy. That energy gets used up in timed cycles, which means that existence itself is basically a thermodynamic process. And you know, thermodynamic processes have a beginning and an end.
Okay, so Schmidt takes these three laws, right? And he presents them to the AI. And the AI doesn't just say, yep, looks good. No, it actually sets up an experiment to test them against its own programming and everything it knows about our world. The AI's approach was super methodical. First, it checked its own system. Could it perform an action that broke the laws? Then it looked at simple human stuff, like making a cup of tea. And finally, it zoomed out to look at huge collective human projects, like building a city or even creating a language, trying to find just one single exception.
So what happened when it tried to break that first law, to act without some kind of movement? Well, the AI's response was pretty blunt. To answer a question, it had to move through its own data. An action without that, in its own words, impossible.
And what about acting without time and energy, the third law? Same story. Every single one of its calculations used up electricity and took a tiny but measurable slice of time. The AI concluded that trying to act without them wasn't just illogical, it was a physical and informational contradiction. The laws were holding up.
So the final takeaway from the AI's experiment? It was pretty clear-cut. It scoured everything it knew and couldn't find a single logical action. Not from a human, not from a group, not from itself, that didn't fit the framework. It concluded that these laws seem to be the basic operating system for, well, any system that actually works. And get this, the very act of running the test and telling us the results, that followed the laws too. Kind of meta, right?
But hold on, because these three simple laws, they're just the tip of the iceberg. They're actually the doorway into a much, much bigger and way more ambitious framework that's aiming to tie together physics, consciousness, and even how societies work.
This is where it goes for the gold. The whole thing is called, get ready for it, SUTQRD. The goal is to use those three simple laws to build one single model that connects the world of the very big, Einstein's relativity, with the world of the very small, quantum mechanics.
Now, you see this equation. Don't panic, you're not going to be tested on it. What's important here is the insane claim it's making. It's suggesting that reality is a function of quantum physics and space-time, plus something called a consciousness field. In this theory, consciousness isn't some happy accident of biology. It's a fundamental ingredient of the universe itself.
And it's not just hand-waving. The theory claims to have the advanced math to back it up, using things like topology. The core argument, again, is that consciousness, that's the C-hat there, isn't something that just happens inside a brain. It's a basic geometric property of reality, just like gravity warps spacetime.
And this isn't just theory on a blackboard either. It's designed to be computational. This little snippet of code you're seeing, that's from a model called quantum cortex, which is actually trying to simulate a conscious system based on these very rules.
And if you thought it stopped at physics and code, think again. The theory's ambition stretches all the way to social critique. It asks these deep questions like who here is good and who is evil. The source uses this idea to look at things like organized crime, basically arguing that those labels good, evil, they aren't objective facts. They're just about your point of view and which group you belong to.
Okay, let's take a breath. What are we supposed to make of all this? This whole conversation between a man and a machine has some really massive implications for how we think about, well, everything.
Ultimately, the source material leaves us with two different ways to look at this. On one hand, maybe this is just a philosopher's really ambitious, creative attempt to describe reality, built on intuition. Or, on the other hand, maybe it's a set of logical rules so fundamental that an AI, looking at all our knowledge, found them to be the only operating system that makes sense.
Which leaves us with the billion-dollar question. Did this experiment actually uncover something real? Did we just get a peek at the universe's source code, confirmed by an intelligence that isn't even human?
Or, and this is the big or, is the truth something else entirely? Has this AI, by digging through all of our science, our art, our language, simply found the deepest, most basic rules of how humans talk about reality and mistaken the user manual for the machine itself? That, for now, is an open question.
And that's our explainer for today. As always, we want to know what complex topic you want us to break down next time. Thanks for joining us.